I saw that some people were actually paying a little bit of attention to the Christian letter video that I made like 2 months ago or something, and I almost forgot to continue what I said I was going to do about reading the rest of the letter, but trying to analyze it a little bit more, or just trying to go through it in a little bit more detail. So that's what I'm gonna do, since I need to just distract myself from like whatever. What the fuck am I doing? Yeah. Alright. Let's see. Sorry, I just ate like a lot of popcorn right now. I lost my train of thought. So, sorry about the barfing and sorry about the quality of the audio, because I am absolutely sure. I tried to do a new setup right now, but I am 100% sure it's not going to work and it's going to be absolute garbage like all of my audio so far, but eventually I'll get better audio, because I know it's really irritating. It's irritating to me, so I, I bet it's going to be irritating for most people. I'm just rambling here. I don't really know what I'm doing. What? I'm gonna do one video per page, so I can actually go through with the whole thing and not make it like a 3 hour fucking video. So the letters start September 19, 2021. I have finally received paper and envelopes, and I feel it advised to inform you of the following, all of which, as you may or will, you have my consent to relay all of the contents of this letter to Joshua Newell Moon, as well as forward the physical document of David Hilberg, my attorney. So, as I pointed out previously in the other video, Chris makes a lot of hooks on his letters, which make a lot of sense with his personality, which is a personality that clings to things, clings to the past, and just clings to ideas. Is stubborn. He is melancholic and all that. It makes perfect sense for him to do hooks. Also, immediately, another thing that you can notice is that whole thing about him being kind of socially isolated and also at the same time very invasive is very noticeable in his handwriting, because sometimes he separates letters and words a lot, and on the next thing that he's writing he barely makes any space, even in places where they should be a natural place, like in the part where he writes I feel it. He writes that pretty much as a single word there. I feel it. People who are very invasive have a lot of trouble separating letters and words like that. That's a very strong indicative of that kind of personality. Also, another thing that totally makes sense with everything that is known about Chris is that he's very unstable. He starts the letter with a lot of ambition, hope, high energy, like enthusiastically, sort of, in a way. I mean, when he writes "I have finally," he's writing he's writing upwards, and then the writing goes downwards and so on. That's usually when people are very unstable and they are depressive. One thing that I think I forgot to point out in my other video was the eyes. His capital I's have those two prominent lines going up and below the letter like a pillar. Those two ones, they are usually made like that by people who have a lot of desires of notoriety, notoriety. So fuck, that's a mouthful. I forgot to mention that, but again, another thing that goes perfectly well with everything known about Chris, and the way he writes his ends. That's That's handwriting commonly utilized by people who have a lot of desire to be persistent, stubborn. Again, describes Chris very well. Makes a lot of sense. You can tell that this is actually Chris. Another quick thing that I forgot to notice last time I checked this letter was the fact that if you pay close attention, you can realize that Chris usually starts his lines fairly steadily. Like his letters are usually very up straight, steady, firm, and then by the end of the line they are written very rushed to the right, which if you know Chris, it makes a lot of sense because he is usually somebody who will start something with a very made up mind, with energy. He'll just start something and try to make in his mind the best of it, and by the halfway through he already wants to finish real quick. He quits, or he just gets tired of something. He's never disciplined. So you can see there that, for example, in most of his lines, the writing is like that, as I said. Very steady when he starts the line, and then by the end of it is usually very rushed and just a mess. Makes a lot of sense. The following everyone should hear and appreciate, sincerely, authentic, and spiritually are deep. Also, swear direct truth with my left hand over my heart and as I write this sentence. Firstly and vitally and such, it should be made obvious and clear that aside from Andy Warhol and my life event and at present and so far can directly be compared and matched. Notice how in everything that I have been reading so far, how unstable his mind is. In very key sentences and words, he uses a lot of force when he's writing, and then in other ones, he uses barely any force. People usually write in one way or another, a lot of force, or very lightly, but there's always those little changes, and they all have to do with the way you are processing that word, what that word means to you, what that makes you feel in that moment when you write it. Applying more force when you write something means that that word resonates with you in one way or another very strongly, sometimes negatively, sometimes positively. And also in letters, sometimes you will write a word very lightly, but it might contain one or two letters that are very strongly written there with a lot of force. And whenever people do that, it's usually because they have repressed energy, and then you have to analyze which word they have that energy repression there. When you can see it with the ink patches that people leave when they, sometimes obviously it's an accident, sometimes your pen just drops a fucking chunk of ink and it doesn't have anything to do with your personality. But that's why people who are professionals um, analyze that more deeply. One quick example that I really like here is when he says directly compare and match, and you can see that he used more energy, more force when he was writing that than when he said with that which has been chronicled with none other than Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, case. Probably because that's very interesting because when he says directly be compared and matched, he's pretty much jerking off himself right there. He's having a fucking ego boost. He's comparing himself with Jesus Christ. So he uses more. He feels more energy when he thinks of that. He probably has more of a dopamine rush, and when he writes that. But later on, when he says which has been chronicled with none other than Jesus Christ, when he writes which has been chronicled from none other, obviously he knows his bullshit. So he barely scratches the paper when he's doing that in comparison with the previous words. Again, makes perfect sense because he's doubting. He doesn't want. It's almost like he doesn't really want to write that. Like he wants to hide that in his subconscious, and he uses less force he's more discreet when he writes that part because he's no, it's bullshit and he's going too far. And that thing that I pointed out last time, the D on Chronicle, that kind of spirally, swirly way to write a letter like that, like the one like that D right there. It's very telling of somebody who's trying to lie or conceal something, is trying to be sneaky about it, and they use that kind of swirl in your brain. Your brain processes that thought, printing whatever you're writing like that, because you can even see that in the rest of the letter he doesn't write the D like that, only in that word chronicle. Obviously, again, he knows he's lying. He's trying to convince you. He's trying to be sneaky about it in his mind, and he symbolized that without knowing with that little pattern there. Jesus Christ of Nazareth himself in the Holy Bible. Also, feel free to take any unwanted original photograph of my body's face and neck and shoulders slash chest area where I was not wearing the glasses. Then alter the photo to show a naturally grown brown beard, mustache, and sideburns. Same thing with the A in ant sideburns. Same thing again, as I said previously. And then he uses way too much space, more space than he normally uses when he starts the next sentence. Now, place that photo next to any image of Jesus. Um, that distance right there again, basically a very telling detail there of how he's distancing himself, basically from you, from the rest of people, like saying, I don't care what you think. This is what I'm telling you. This is what I want you to believe. So now, place that photo next to takes that photo next to any image of Jesus on of the cross. Compare. Look deep into my eyes and photograph. See for yourself. I meditate, connect directly and genuinely again. The D right there, conflicting mind, and then when he says genuinely with the cosmos, both of our universe has and throughout the timeline and entire multiverse. So despite some lack of physical evidence, I know that ultimate truth, facts, and details not commonly known or written, drawn, or chronicled, that, that being stated all my life from my eyes and in literally held constant perception of being central camera, number 000, comma, out of arrow. See in the end all that crap that he's saying, how he's struggling to believe, to make himself believe in it. He's convincing himself as he writes it. The letters right there, all of his handwriting decreases force when he's putting those words there, because he's doubting about it. He's doubting because he knows it's a lie. In his mind, he knows it's a lie. And he's not using a lot of force, again, as I said, as to be more discreet about it. When you write something and you really mean it, you use a lot, you like press very hard, you emphasize and you make it very noticeable. When you don't want to write something, you barely ever, it's like you're pulling back, it's like you're pulling the pen back subconsciously a little bit, and you almost don't do it, you barely do it with like, oh, you know what I mean. So you barely press just enough to write what you need to write. So he does that here, especially in the parts when he's telling all that chronicle about Jesus and all that he's like God and whatever. He knows he's going too far. He knows it's bullshit. He knows it's a lie. He's conscious about it, and he knows he's lying. So he's doubting and he's having conflict thoughts about it. And you can even tell in which part he's doubting more. It's very funny that when he writes genuinely, he does it very lightly. For example, right on top of that, you see that he wrote yourself, and he used more force there. With the cosmos both of the universe has. He used a little bit more strength there because he's convincing more about the multi-universes and all that shit, and thought of the timelines of the entire multiverse despite some of the... Well, it goes on and off with the conviction that he has, but it's not a lot. So not only did he die 2021 years ago for My Little Pony Season 5, but also he knows that everything's a lie. He's very conscious about it. He knows everything's a lie, and he doesn't, and is not sure exactly what to believe and what to make of it, and he doesn't know yet how to make you believe that he's Jesus and all that, but he has a lot of ego, and he's just out of it now. So, final thoughts. The core things that I see in this page right here is doubt, conflict, repressed energy, invasiveness, and somebody who is overall lying. So that's it for Jesus Chew letter part 1. Bye.